On July 25th, Owens posted, "Where is Charlie Kirk's body?" It was a very big question that was asked, and I think it's a very valid question because obviously there was a lot of discrepancies wherein the body was, when they had the funeral, and the funeral was supposedly like this really big event, and somebody took a picture of Charlie Kirk's hands like this. They look like little measly woman fingers. And then Erika's big paw was like laying over it. The fact that the scene of the crime was cleaned up, the fact that all of a sudden there was no emergency responses anywhere nearby, and in the state, nobody knows where his body is. Is Erika Kirk, the Jezebel witch, not building her brand off of Charlie Kirk's death? Those demons are literally manifesting themselves. You could see it in her eyes, her rage. As I say, if anybody still supports Erika Kirk, then you're brain dead. If anybody still supports Turning Point, you're a lost cause. What's up, guys? This is God, Grit, and Glory, and I am your host, Vito Creed. We talk about the stuff that most people stay quiet about: Jesus, business, politics, and occasionally a few conspiracy theories. No scripts, no filters, just straight up truth. So join us as we unravel and speak truth. Welcome all, this is Vito Creed with God, Grit, and Glory. And we're going to be talking about Erika Kirk today. We're going to be talking about some of the allegations, some of the stuff that was found. So on July 25th, Owens posted, "Where is Charlie Kirk's body?" It was a very big question that was asked, and I think it's a very valid question because obviously there was a lot of discrepancies wherein the body was, when they had the funeral, and the funeral was supposedly like this really big event, and somebody took a picture of Charlie Kirk's hands like this. They look like little measly woman fingers. And then Erika's big paw was like laying over it. And it's like her hands were equally, if not bigger, than Charlie Kirk's hands. So that was already originally a red flag. The thing is people, for the most part, are not stupid. They're very observant. Maybe not all people, but God's given us a gift of observation. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you guys a fun story. I have a photographic memory, so I remember everything down to a T. When I walk into a room, I can scan the room, and I can tell if something has been tampered with. I know exactly the way things stand, and I kind of take probably mental pictures in my mind when I walk into a room. I remember when we lived in Washington State. My wife didn't know this about me. She knew I was maybe she could, I use the word anal. In other words, very meticulous about the way I like certain things and, organization and make sure things are clean and cleanliness and all that. But let me tell you something. I remember she was trying to give me a gift, and she bought a cross, and she was trying to give me a necklace, but she couldn't find a necklace that matched it well. So what she did is she went into my bedroom, specifically, I think that I was actually, sorry, I apologize, my office. And I had a jewelry box there, and she pulled my old necklace off, and she put her new necklace there, put it safely in, near the box. The box wasn't closed. And then she gave me that necklace for my birthday. But what's interesting is I walked into the room. I noticed two things immediately. I noticed the picture frame was a different frame, and it was almost identical, but it was slightly a different color of gold. And I instantly looked to the left, and I said, that's new. That wasn't there. And I walked to the side, and I seen the jewelry box was slightly tilted, and I had opened it, and I seen that there was a necklace in it that didn't belong to me. Now, bear in mind, I have dozens of necklaces, probably 20, 30, 40 of them. Gold, silver, all sorts of regular stainless steel, crosses, you name it. It's not that I have one necklace and she took it. It's the fact that I know exactly which necklaces I have, and I memorize all of it. And I seen that picture, and I walked out, and I said, "Hey, did you take my picture frame, and did you take my necklace?" She was floored. She couldn't believe the fact that I actually knew, and she's like, "Did you have a camera in your office or something?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "How could you possibly know that?" It's only like about a year and a half, 2 years into our marriage. So she didn't know this about me. She didn't know how observant I was. She didn't know that I pay attention. And that is my thing is Charlie Kirk used to be very proud of this. He's like, I'm really good at putting things together. I'm really good at piecing things together. And so am I. And Candace Owens, I will tell you, also has this gift. I will tell you that if Candace Owens was a male, if she was a man, they would have killed her a long time ago. Because she's a woman, and because they could just label her as an extremist or like literally a psychopath or an unhinged woman, she doesn't press a real big threat to their plans. For whatever reason, when men do it, it's a really big problem. Look at Tristan and Andrew Tate. Look at how hard they're going after, Nick Fuentes. Look at what they've tried to do here in Florida for the new governor, James Fishback. He kind of came out of out of nowhere. He was basically out somewhere hiding, and all of a sudden he became a politician, and everybody's like, who is this guy? And his stance on Israel became, no, we do not support foreign aid. We do not take money from AIPAC. We are going to defund all of these data centers. We are going to not allow flock cameras in our state. And all of a sudden, he started to make a lot of sense, but that would mean less money for the government. That would mean less control. And that would mean way less control for Israel. Israel cannot occupy Florida. We all know how big of a shill DeSantis was. We all know that he went to the Wailing Wall of China, I call it, the Wailing Wall in Israel, and he kissed it. We seen him wearing his little yarmulke. We know he's a complete sellout. Any pressure that they put on him, he wanted to be part of the cool kids, the crew. What's crazy is he completely abandoned his Catholic/Christian roots because he became a shill for Israel. So we understand the fact that Candace Owens, she raises a lot of good questions, but at the end of the day, if she was a man, she would be a lot more of a threat and they would have tried a lot harder to get rid of her. So when she had made this comment and said, hey, on July 25th, hey, where's the body? Was it quietly cremated? This drew immediate pushback. Blake Neff, producer of Charlie Kirk Show, replied, none of your business, woman. And, questioning her entitlement to the information. He said, oh, well, why are you owed this? It's none of your business. This is a private matter. And she's like, excuse me, he was a public figure. Of course, this is our business. This is our business because we have to understand, we have to truly understand what had happened to him. Is it not okay to ask these questions? And of course, supporters of Owens treated the question as a legitimate inquiry into possible evidence destruction or unusual handling. Critics called it invasive, ghoulish, and irrelevant to the criminal case against Tyler Robinson. No public confirmation of burial location or cremation status has been issued by the family or Turning Point in response. They're like, no, we don't have to tell you. We're not going to entertain any of your stuff because we don't have to. Because we have Donald Trump protecting us, basically. The government protects us. One thing that disgusted me, that Andrew Tate was actually pro-MAGA, pro-Donald Trump, and he probably helped him, obviously, also get elected because he was in support of him. But the fact that they're trying to extradite him to the UK, Trump openly came out and said that we're not going to do anything to impede on their investigation. In other words, you guys want to, take him there, be my guest. Owens followed up by rejecting privacy arguments, pointing out that images of Charlie's embalmed body in a coffin and that Erika's sick mother in a wheelchair had already been shared publicly or filmed for social media. She framed the burial questions as consistent with demanding transparency and accused the other side of selective privacy. And she makes a lot of very valid points. These are extremely valid. And of course, that escalated into, an intense back and forth between, with Andrew Kolvet and Blake Neff between Text and the Daily Mail. This has been the sharpest recent escalation. Owens has been releasing screenshots of private text messages she says are from Charlie Kirk She presents them as proof of ongoing close friendships, his private frustrations, including with the pro-Israel pressure and figures around Ben Shapiro. He's very vocal about the reason he didn't like Ben Shapiro. We all knew that he didn't like him, even though he was on his show September 9th, the night before he got shot by his lapel mic. And that Turning Point USA figures have misrepresented the state of their relationship between 2019 and 2023. She has repeatedly said there are hundreds more text messages and that she will release additional ones so the public can judge for themselves. She specifically ties some of the messages to Charlie's views shifting away from the pro-Israel cause shortly before his death, claiming a key conversation on September 9th of 2025. In the conversation she's having is some of the stuff that he talked to Ben Shapiro on the interview. And then Andrew Kolvet, Turning Point USA spokesman, executive producer of the Charlie Kirk Show, responds in length, and he says that these alleged texts, and he's like, assuming that it's a real argument, many appear to date to 2023 when Charlie was dealing with anti-Semitism accusations and was willing to support Owens against what he saw as unfair attacks. At the time, Owens had not yet, in Kolvet's view, gone off the deep end. Charlie later sourced on her after she publicly shared details of a private call involving President Trump and Emmanuel Macron. Kolvet says Charlie viewed that as a major breach of confidence, told him Owens was a lost cause. So now he's putting words into Charlie Kirk's mouth. And then on top of that, he comes out and says, Kolvet says that it is posthumous and it reveals private messages as evil in many contexts and accuses Owens of weaponizing them to diminish Charlie's public record and advance her agenda while he cannot respond. He says, well, because Charlie Kirk is dead and he can't respond, you're sort of taking advantage of him. You're taking advantage of Charlie Kirk because he's dead and he can't represent himself. And you're trying to shill your anti-Israel propaganda when quite literally the opposite is true. And what's wild about this, I find this pretty fascinating, because if you're paying attention, he's actually accusing her of doing that exact thing that he's doing himself. He's literally going out and he's saying that, well, Charlie Kirk, although these text messages may have some weight, let me explain to you what they actually mean, even though we see nothing to even imply those meanings. And of course, he adds a couple of, layers in there of his own. He says, well, he already thought that that Candace Owens was nuts. So therefore, it completely debunks all these text messages. But does it? So you're saying just because he at some point maybe didn't agree with something that Candace said, it debunks the fact that they had a constant exchange of text messages and they actually were, in fact, a lot closer than people want them to realize? A parallel fight involves a Daily Mail article that quoted source close to Erika, using harsh language about Owens. Soulless ghoul. Similar insults claiming the bridge is burned and that Owens is building her brand off death. Who's building her brand off death? Are you guys following how insane this is? Is Erika Kirk, the Jezebel witch, not building her brand off of Charlie Kirk's death? Her entire image, I forgive you. Like, you want to reach their camera and just smack her for being such a sellout. You're going to sit here and tell me that Candace Owens is building her image on death when Erika Kirk literally spent like an entire 4 or 5 months traveling and pretty much becoming like a social media queen. And all of a sudden, she's on all of these CNN and Fox and everywhere, coming out and doing personal interviews and shilling her book that she claimed was Charlie's and trying to profit off of it, making millions and millions of dollars in t-shirt sales and selling all of her merch. Like, you're going to sit here and tell me that Candace Owens, who, by the way, had already had her own show, similar, and it was on mainstream media, by the way, it was on a mainstream channel, And of course, she went off on her own and did her own podcast because she was just probably tired of dealing with all these tyrants. And she's like, I'm not going to bow my finger, because what they were trying to do, telling you guys why Candace Owens went off on her own and decided to do the Candace Owens show, which was going to basically be produced at her own house, because they were telling her what she was allowed to say and what she wasn't allowed to say. She couldn't say anything against Israel, first and foremost. And that went against all of her views because she didn't believe that. She didn't think that she needed to tiptoe around a cause that she knew was the sole problem, that had essentially their claws in all of these problems. And it's funny because Blake Neff has more Kirk calling Owens a vile witch, when the witch is actually Erika Kirk. You could see it on her face. You could see it in her eyes. Why don't you guys watch them both side by side and see which one is actually evil? You could see it in her eyes. And the crazy part about it is Erika Kirk, she can't hide it. Those demons are literally manifesting themselves. You could see it in her eyes, her rage, her frustration. And it's not just regular anger. It's not just somebody that gets mad and has an outburst. She's literally like sitting there and she's fizzling in it as if some demon is ready to escape her. That is not natural. Owens' recent episode and promotional posts have centered on additional Charlie Kirk text messages framed as revealing the death of the betrayal of his co-workers. Timing details around Ben Shapiro, including a claimed lunch date or related activity on September 10th, 2025, plus another information bounty. So what's crazy is I 1,000% disagree with anybody that says that she is profiting off of a death. And if anybody's guilty of profiting off death, it is Turning Point USA, and it is 110% Erika Kirk. And the crazy part to me is all of these ignorant fools that are coming out and saying, oh, Erika Kirk is so innocent. How dare you guys attack? And all these mega pastors. The real question is, and I talked about this in my earlier podcast, where is Mikey McCoy? Where is he now? He hasn't come out and said anything. As soon as all of these allegations surfaced, he sort of went away, and now he's hiding behind closed doors so nobody ever talks about him again, because a lot of people realized that a lot of the stuff that he was doing was extremely, at the bare minimum, suspicious. It was so suspicious, in fact, that it made him actually look guilty, like he had something to do with any of this. And of course, none of this is obviously relevant enough, apparently, because, she came out from day one and mentioned the fact that Tyler Robinson was a patsy. And I said that from the start as well, by the way. I said he's totally a patsy. There was just so much going on. I mean, if you guys, I don't want to regurgitate all of this information again, but I mean, look at all of the stuff that was suspicious. All of a sudden, there were security guards yanking at their arms, doing a bunch of weird stuff. This guy was dispatching. When Charlie Kirk's body fell over, somebody ran in there quickly and stripped the lapel mic off of him in the back. Somebody, of course, that worked for Turning Point USA took the cameras down that directly were behind and took the memory cards out of them. The fact that the scene of the crime was cleaned up. The fact that all of a sudden there was no emergency responses anywhere nearby, and in the state, in that state, I mean, whether it's Nevada or Utah or all of those local states there, they all have rules that if more than 500 people get together, there has to be some sort of basically either police force and, of course, ambulances around and fire department stuff right there on call to help in the event of some tragic accident or, God forbid, a shooting. None of that happened. His own personal detail was there, which of course we know is the IDF. All the stuff that surfaced from Fort Huachuca, or for whatever reason the Egyptian planes were flying around, or why that factory exploded and killed dozens of people. Like, all these questions are like, okay, well, if there is something suspicious here, let's just say if it's one thing or two things, fine. But I mean, all of it's suspicious. And then the fact that they had apprehended the shooter, which was on the floor, which was some old guy who happened to be at other events, being a provoker, in very similar situations. So in other words, he is just another patsy. And then, of course, the fact that there was shrapnel found in the vehicle, and then the vehicle was instantly sent to auction instead of being held as a crime scene for evidence. His shirt was mishandled. Nobody knows where his body is. I mean, the fact that Erika Kirk was then realized that she was the one that signed off on no autopsy, when then the public, heard about the actual audio that came out from the local police station, and they tried to bury that as well. Like all of this as a whole. And then Tyler Robinson is seen at a Dairy Queen. And then of course that alleged person, which is Lance Twiggs, Robinson's roommate, as a romantic partner. Owens, of course, suggests that Twiggs may have been a federal asset or otherwise compromised. Noted that he received immunity and argued that much of the key evidence, confession statements, identification, recovery belongings, relies on him. She has claimed early police handling of Twiggs was inadequate and that he has been fully cross-examined in a way that tests his reliability. Robinson's family believes the FBI released images to depict someone else, not Tyler. So, and then there was somebody else who allegedly looked like Erika Kirk's stepbrother. Yes, she has a stepbrother. There's a lot of weird crap going on. And then the proceedings as a potential show trial. I mean, these are show trials. Owens argues the public is being given an incomplete picture. This fits into her broader theories that the assassination involves more than a lone actor. Of course it does. There's just this, but it was also very, 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 very sloppy work. And one thing that really pisses me off, like you got these shills, and I've met both these guys at these Turning Point conferences, like Graham Allen, one of the more vocal and aggressive critics of Owens on this issue. He has called her campaign against Erika Kirk a demonic attack on a widow and her children, said it is time to end the feud before it destroys everything Charlie fought for. Oh, shut up. Graham, you are a sellout. The only reason you even have, even the small audience that you have, is not because you have anything original to say, because you love to regurgitate information. That's it. David, you are no different. David Harris Jr., I'm calling you out. You are a joke. You are a freaking joke. You are literally a sock puppet. I would call you a puppet, but you're a sock puppet. You're one of those sock puppets that boys have under their mattress when they're growing up. And for boys, I think you guys understand what I'm talking about. That's all you're good for. Your information that comes out of your mouth is completely useless. You can't sit on anything. When I watch you, even for the split seconds that you're on Fox or anywhere else, and you are sitting there baffling and mumbling and just stumbling in your own speech, you have no, first of all, you have no articulation. You can't collect your thoughts. And everything you say is not original. It's a regurgitation of somebody else's talking points. So what I think you genuinely do is you get on social media, find the people you want to align yourself with, and you listen to them, and then you go back and you literally are like a parrot. You sit there, and you go back and forth, and you just re-parrot somebody else's ideologies or their ideas. That's all you are. You are just the puppets. And it makes me disgusted listening to all of you puppets. You're like Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino is the biggest sellout because he took $6 million from AIPAC. $6 million, guys, from AIPAC. You think he needs a stupid, fake podcast that now he does that nobody wants to follow? I don't give a crap about what he has to say. And I never liked Dan Bongino, by the way, for the record. I never followed him. He was always overly aggressive about everything. He tried to over-exaggerate and over-elicit some of his behavior, the way that things annoyed him and potentially made him upset. But at the core of the problem, I could still see the fact that he was trying to shill. Because the kind of causes he would get behind are things that no normal person would stand behind unless there was a lot of money involved. So, for anybody still supporting Turning Point USA, you're a fool. For anybody still standing behind Erika Kirk and saying she's innocent, you're just ignorant. Like, you are genuinely ignorant. Like, or just stupid. Like there's no other way to put it. You could use the word retarded, but that word is kind of frowned upon here. And unless Ben Shapiro uses it, by the way, because Ben Shapiro used retard many times on his podcast. And did it get demonetized? No, it did not. Because he's an Israeli asset and he's allowed to say whatever he wants. And the rules don't apply to him. If he comes out on national television and says that somebody deserves to die and deserves to get, punished for some of the stuff, nothing's going to happen to him. But if any one of us comes out and says this, we get silenced, we get shadow banned. And this is the why I came up with voice ban, because I'm disgusted of all of this behavior. I'm disgusted of the Ben Shapiros of this world, of the freaking David Harrises of this world, of the Dan Bonginos of this world, everybody being pushed around. And then all of a sudden, when the Thomas Massey of this world comes out, or Charlie Kirk comes out, they want to They want to take you out. See, Thomas Massey doesn't have the platform. Neither does Marjorie Taylor Greene have the platform. Neither does Anna Paulina Luna, she's extremely anti-Israel. And she's a local person here that I know personally. But I will tell you they're against it because they understand the dangers of getting into bed with a foreign, basically country, with a foreign nation. And I'm going to tell you that Turning Point is going into the ground. Turning Point is no more. Turning Point is a dying cause. And somebody needs to step in and replace them ASAP. Something that is organic, something that is original, something that is genuine and supports the cause for America first. Because Turning Point, all they are going to be is they're going to be a megaphone for Israel. And all of the crap moving forward, you're not going to be able to go in there and say anything even remotely that suggests that Israel is invading, that Israel is conquering America. Any of that is going to be considered anti-Semitic. And they're not going to allow that. But let me tell you that these are the nations that try the hardest to destroy. And this is why everybody's so intimidated by Iran. And they're so intimidated by Russia because Russia doesn't give two craps about what you have to say. In fact, I listened to a speech by Putin that recently came out and said that Israel is a real problem. And their narratives and support for pedophilia and to try to cover up all of the scams and all of the schemes just to protect a few people is disgusting. And they're perverting our children and they're perverting our nations. And he's calling for the war of Israel. Because they are pretty disgusting and all the stuff that they do is pretty disgusting. So, as I say, if anybody still supports Erika Kirk, then you're brain dead. If anybody still supports Turning Point, you're a lost cause. That's all I have to say. Thank you for joining. Vito Creed, God, great glory.